I'm Cruz Devon, and this is This Gay Life. I'd like to thank you for joining us first off, because we have a really great show for you. Today's guest is Carol Conway of the Springfield Now chapter, and we'll be talking about, if you saw the title, it's called Local Politics ? And why that is important, and what you can do, and how it may or may not run your life in ways that you know of and some that you don't know of. So let me introduce my guest, Carol Conway.
Hi, nice to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself so we could...
Sure. I have been politically active since I was 12. My mother took me to a ladies' political tea in the spring of 1960. We were living in Iowa, and it was a tea for a man who was running for governor, Harold Hughes, who later became senator from the state of Iowa, and is one of my all-time heroes. And I went to this tea, and I heard this man talk about his vision of how things could be and how people could change the world, and I was bitten. It was over. Up till then, I'd been a history freak, and I changed overnight to politics. I just thought, this is so wonderful that you can have an impact and you can do these things. It was so empowering, and he was such a wonderful, charismatic leader. A lot of charm and a lot of ambition, and it was just wonderful. And then right away it was the 60s, and I just, and then I come from a mixed marriage. My mother's a Democrat, my father's a Republican. And so things had always been discussed politically in my house, and I have been political ever since on every level. It's just, I don't know if you're born with a political gene or what, but once you get it and you see the importance of it, there's no backing up. It's a wonderful, wonderful way to spend your time.
You are coordinator for the Springfield Now chapter. Can you tell us a little bit about Now?
Sure. The National Organization for Women was founded about 20 years ago, and it is and always has been at its heart essentially a political movement. It is about the things that politics addresses: power, who has it, how it's used, and how you access it. And the goal of the National Organization for Women is to bring women into full participation in the mainstream of American society now. That is, that women would have a share in all of the rights and privileges and responsibilities in this country in a truly equal partnership with men. This includes full participation in the rights and responsibilities of citizenship, public service, employment, education, and family life without discrimination because of age, marital status, sexual preference, or parenthood. And when you think even about that last one, parenthood, when I was in the 4th grade, my teacher had to quit because she became pregnant. And for a long time in this country, first of all, married women couldn't teach. If a woman married, she had to quit teaching. And then married teachers could teach, but pregnant teachers could not teach. So women are discriminated against for having children, for being married, for being unmarried, as well as for their sexual preference. And things are a great deal better in the last 20 or 30 years, but there's a long, long ways to go. And politics is not something you do and get over. I think it's a lifetime commitment that you either have a view of how the world ought to be and you continue to work towards that, or you don't.
One of the things that Now has done, and almost, I can't say perfected, but they're really good at, is what is called grassroots organizing.
Right. They're very good at grassroots organizing, and they are very good at national lobbying in Washington. Now's lobbying in Washington is extremely effective. It's probably the reason that reproductive choice is at all a choice still in this country. But really, grassroots, the small chapters scattered around the country, is the power base. Obviously, this is where the money raising is done. This is where the support for the national policy comes from. And there are small chapters scattered all over in Missouri. There's about 7. And there's also what we call at-large members. So if you live in a small rural town where there is no Now chapter close, you can be a Missouri Now member at large. and you still participate, you still have voting rights, you get the state newsletter, and there are about 3,000 statewide now members, in addition to our chapter members. And the key here, I think, is in the title. It's the National Organization for Women. Men are welcome to join. We have many men members, and we have had national board members who are men. So this is a group of people who are working for active participation in our society of women. And you begin, I guess, the way most any organization does, political party, the way COHAB began.
Yeah.
You have a dream, I guess, and you try to bring that to actuality. You set up a local board, you raise members, and then hopefully you take action that will address your situation. Traditionally in this country, you think of grassroots organizing and you think of our political parties. People in the cities that go to ward and precinct meetings. This is where the power lies. Missouri, of course, has county caucuses, and you can go to your county caucus and you can actually have a say about what message you want taken to your state convention in terms of who your delegates will be to the state convention, who your state delegates will be to the national convention, what policies you support, what policies you do not support. It begins in these little tiny meetings scattered all the way around the country. It is not expensive. It does not take up a tremendous amount of time. But this is where the beginning of power lies. This is where policy changes occur.
Well, there's a lot of people that would say or argue this, and, well, that's all good and fine with politics. I don't want to get involved. Why is it important to me in the first place?
Okay, I think that we have a twofold problem here. There are people that when you say the word politics, they either throw up or turn the channel. And
don't turn the channel, whatever you do, don't turn it.
I have days when I can sympathize with that. I read the newspaper and I listen to the news and I say, get a life, people, you know, what is this? But the fact remains, we do live in a free society. And that means if you do believe that we are the government, or even that we should be the government, then it is for us to do. It is our right and our responsibility. Somebody's going to do this. I mean, somebody is. Nature abhors a vacuum. Somebody's going to go to these caucus meetings and these precinct meetings and these ward meetings and these state conventions. Somebody's going to make some decisions and pick some candidates. And it better be you. You know, this really is, to me, it's not a choice. This is an obligation. You live here, you reap the benefits of this society, you had better participate in this society. And if you don't like the way politics functions, well, fix it. Don't just say, oh, excuse me, I don't like this, it's nasty, I don't want to play. That, you know, 10-year-old people do that. Grown-up people do not do that. They buckle down and they get to work and they figure out a way to make things better. That is, I mean, that's the essence of the American dream. That's what the whole thing is about. The history of democracy, all, you know, beginning in England with the Magna Carta in 11 whatever. Yeah. We have 1,000 years of history of freedom and ruling ourselves. And when you say politics is boring or nasty or crooked or any of those things, you're turning your back on everything that's important in a free society. We just can't do that. I would be the first to admit that it can be horrible, but it's so worthwhile. And when it goes right, and when you see the government functioning as government is meant to, on any level, it's a wonderful thing. It's so empowering to know, I did this. Yeah. You know, I did this.
Well, too, and if people say, you know, generically, well, they're crooked or something like that, well, maybe they're crooked because somebody like you is not in there saying, hey, look, I'm not going to stand for this.
That's right.
This is important to me, and I think it should run a different way. And it's not, in my own experience and stuff, I found that it's not so much that you have to do oh so much, because a lot of it's very small, like educating yourself on what's going on the ballots and stuff like that, and taking the time, all 30 minutes of it, to go out and vote, and small things like that. And what are some other things that we can do? I mean, even just small things.
I think that it begins with education of yourself. People really do need to know what's going on. They need to know what's going on at the most local level, at the county level, and at the state level. All kinds of things happen in Jefferson City that impact us daily. And ignorance is just giving your life away. Knowledge really and truly is power. We need to watch the news, read the newspaper. If something happens that you don't understand, make a phone call. Go to the library. Libraries are fabulous. I mean, they'll help you dig up the most esoteric information. You know, if you don't think that women are oppressed, go to the library and ask for the labor statistics. You know, and see that we're paid less than 30 cents. 30 cents less a dollar for equal work. You know, find out what it's all about. And I don't know that that's an easy thing or a little thing, but you can do it in, you know, kind of like TV time bites. You can do a little here and you can do a little there. Raise your consciousness. Understand what is happening. And sometimes that's just, you know, maybe you just really need to take 5 minutes periodically and think about things. If something's wrong, why is it wrong, or when did it start to go wrong? National elections in this country are bizarre. They need a lot of work. But at the very local level, one of the things that's coming up is the Jefferson Day thing that the Democratic Party does. If somebody doesn't know anything, that's a good place to go. It's fun. It's informative. You can go there. You can meet our elected officials from this area, and you can ask questions. And there are no stupid questions. And then I think that after you have become educated or mentally active, you need to decide what it really is that you want to do. And I would encourage everybody to actually do something. Definitely go to your school board meetings and watch. Go to the city council meetings. Go to the county commissioners meetings. You don't have to go to all these things all the time, but do it occasionally. Go to park board meetings if you're an outside enthusiast.
Well, and there's briefs available too.
That's right.
Yeah.
And call up city council members and ask them questions. My experience with elected officials is they are so pleased when somebody takes a legitimate interest that they will go out of their way to help you to get information and form opinions, because they're so glad that somebody cares and that somebody's willing to say, gee, I have this opinion, and what can we do about this, and do you have some ideas? And then write letters, make the phone calls. In the state of Missouri, quite often 10 letters will change a vote in Jeff City. Because we have
10 letters?
Only 10 letters. 10 letters very frequently will change a vote. And 10 letters is not a whole lot here, people. I mean, you know, this is...
Think how many people? I mean, we've got like almost 1/5 of that right here.
Right, in this room, you know. And sometimes a bill will pass and nobody gets anything. There is not a phone call made. There is not a letter received. There are no telegrams received. And here is this legislator out there going, well, it's one of 500 bills on his desk. You know, they need our input. I mean, they are there to represent us. Well, and if they don't hear from us, and this applies at every level, but if you really want to do something, pick a candidate. Pick an issue and then get out there and work for that candidate. I have never in my life heard of a political candidate saying, excuse me, I don't want any help. This just does not happen. And if you aren't the kind of person that wants to get up and talk and speak, you know, you can make phone calls, you can stuff envelopes, you can do the grunt work.
A lot of people, though, I hear this a lot, and I mean, when I say a lot, how do you quantify a lot? Just very often people say, well, all the special interest groups in Washington. There's no way we're going to change anything because every time we try to change something, they want their own special thing to go on, and it just seems like there's nothing that they can do. And people begin to feel really powerless, you know, against like special interest groups.
And the numbers are tremendous. You know, when you look at all of the people that they are and all of these people wanting something, it is very easy to feel like your vote doesn't count or like your participation doesn't count. But special interests go both ways. I mean, you know, I'm the first one to stand up and holler about special interests, but I'm here representing a special interest. I'm a very strong advocate for women's rights. I mean, I have an agenda. I am a special interest, and I'm loud about it. But the fact remains, I'm for women's rights within a context. You know, I'm not out there saying women should take over the world and destroy the government. I'm saying that equal. Well, I mean, you know, I mean that's the ultimate result of a special interest carried to its ridiculous extreme. And I think that you have to consider your own personal agenda within the framework of community. In other words, if we're talking about a national election, you're talking about not only what is good for you, but what is good for people like you and people dislike you. What is good for people in this country? And on the local level, I think you have to function within the framework of community as well. What makes a good community? What keeps a good community good? What makes a place a nice place to live? And individual rights are very important to that, but so are community obligations. And I think my own pet peeve is one-issue people. You know, they'll pick this little thing, and everything they do, every letter they write, every candidate they support, life is not one issue. Life is complicated and messy and ever-changing and complex, and you have to fit yourself into the society in which you live.
Well, speaking of like single issues, I mean, one of the main things that you've seen in the news lately is morality, and especially morality like in schools and stuff like that. In fact, one article, it was in Saturday's paper, talks about Oceanside, California. I was raised in Oceanside. Actually, it was about 15 miles from Oceanside, but the whole community was pretty much about the same. And let me read this here. It says, a school board controlled by 3 conservative Christians approved a sex education program Friday that teaches students abstinence only. And if, you know, just 3 people can get on a school board and totally control the curriculum, and this is in California that is supposedly so wicked and has so much freedom and has so many homosexuals and everything controlling California, and yet here it is, right here in the news, you know, 3 Christians got on the school board and they're controlling the curriculum of this particular school. You know, and it's like, you know, national really can affect local.
Yes, it can. And when you have a group with an agenda that functions on every level, and the religious right-wing fringe is that way. They are well organized at the levels of state and local as well as national politics. And they are doing well statewide in Missouri. We have Governor Carnahan now. We have President Clinton. And their agenda is not going to be passed in the immediate future on the state level in Missouri or in the national level. So they have adopted a very good political tact, which is fall back on local. And you start with boards like county commissioners and the school board, city council, and you work your way into the state houses and the governor's chairs and eventually the national Congress. And it is extremely good politics, and I commend them for that, because that is how the system is supposed to work. The problem is if they have an agenda that is aside from or not compatible with the basic premise of public school education. For instance, if you talk about school boards, there's a real problem there. Public schools are just that. They are public schools. All children in this country go to public schools unless their parents choose otherwise. But this is basically, and always has been, the backbone of this country is our free public education. And so when you start tampering with that, this is no minor thing. This is not some unimportant little ticky-tacky election that you don't need to pay any attention to. This is real nuts and bolts. I mean, you're talking about constitutional issues here. You know, when they wrote the Constitution, it was rejected. Right out. I mean, people all over said, we aren't going to vote for that because we don't have the freedoms in there that we need. And it was not until the Bill of Rights was attached to the Constitution that they could even begin to get that thing passed. So I think it's important to think of the Constitution in terms of the entire document, which includes the Bill of Rights. And right in there is separation of church and state. And public schools are a secular part of our society, and they need to remain so. And I don't think that anybody with an agenda that aims in the long run to destroy that is good for our public schools, is good for our community, and is good for our country. I don't mind anybody thinking the way they think, worshiping the way they please. Everybody absolutely has to have that right, but it is their right. They have no right to inflict that opinion on other people's children. And when you get into things like curriculum control, you're really doing a terrible thing. First, the obvious thing that comes to mind is sex education. And I don't think, personally, that teenage people should have sex. I think abstinence is a grand and wonderful idea. But there's one thing wrong with it. It doesn't work. You know, I wish it did, but it doesn't work. And the whole thing is that when you are talking about people in their teenage years, you are talking about the process of beginning to pull away from the family and become your own individual person. And hopefully the goal of education is not only to pump facts into all of these little brains, but is to give these children the tools to become good human beings. And to do that, they need to know a lot of things about a lot of things, and one of the things they need knowledge about is sex. And
so they can make a decision.
So they can, so that they can make a decision. Teenagers don't like being told because I said so. They don't like being told what they can't do. This is just a thing that just is naturally against the flow of a teenaged human being. And I think that if you give children appropriate, accurate, truthful information, and then frame that within the context of, we are going to tell you why we don't think you should do this. Here is the information, and here are all the reasons. You are not prepared mentally, psychologically, economically, and spiritually for this activity at this time. It is inappropriate to you. We don't put 10-month-old babies on a bicycle, you know, but they're going to say, why not? And they're supposed to say that.
And they need to make this decision for themselves. Otherwise, they're just going off with somebody else's. Well, we've got like 3 seats on the school board that are coming up on the vote on April 5th. And it's like there's a lot of people out there, and we've only got a couple of minutes left, but there's people saying like, well, I'm single, I don't have children. I mean, why should I even care about who's going to be on the school board?
Okay, well, first of all, unless you're extremely old, when these people are being elected to office and these people are creating the world you're going to live in, you're still going to be around here. So you have a very strong vested interest in how these children turn out. Secondly, anybody who doesn't care about the children in their community really has a serious problem. These are our kids. I mean, I don't care if they're my own personal biological kids. These are all our kids. We owe them the very best possible education that money can buy. We all owe them that. If you live in this community, then you have a strong obligation to this community, and above all to the children. And this is not somebody else's issue. In the first place, many gay and lesbian people do have children. But even if they aren't your personal children, they're our kids.
And they're part of the community.
Yeah, there are our neighbor kids. They're the kids that deliver the newspaper. They're the kids that, you know, go by walking the dog. They are our kids. They're our future. They're everything. And school board elections are critically important. You simply have to vote in school board elections. You must.
And
you owe it to yourself. Yes.
And be
you
informed.
owe it to yourself, and you owe it to your community.
Okay. Could you tell us a little bit about now, like when the meetings are? And I know it's been a real exciting conversation, and there's a lot of, no, really, I mean this.
Okay.
I mean, because you've given us a lot of information.
We have monthly meetings. They are the fourth Tuesday of every month at 7 o'clock at the Unitarian Church on East Battlefield, between Luster and Lone Pine on the south side of the street. They are open to the public. You do not have to be a member to come. They are open to men as well as women, unless once in a while we have a women-only program, but it's always advertised that way, and it's very rare. And then the other thing I need to tell you about is there's going to be a now-sponsored National Women's Summit on August the 27th of this year in Jefferson City, called WAC, which is Women Against the Amendment Coalition. And this is for straight women and lesbian women to get together and get past any differences that we may have. There will be an arbitrator there, and we need to focus on getting the job done, defeating the Amendment Coalition, and making Missouri a better and safer state for women.
Yes.
All women.
Well, I thank you for being my guest. We need to
My pleasure.
We need to get to some announcements here. Time just seems to fly. The first one is they're starting to plan, this is from the News Telegraph up in Kansas City and St. Louis. Pride 94 is being planned right now. The first one is going to be June 11th and 12th, so you'll want to go ahead and mark that off on your calendar for Kansas City. Also, AIDS Project of the Ozarks is having two fundraisers come up. One is a concert, and it's jointly sponsored by Springfield's Public High Schools, Greenwood, and Springfield Catholic High School, and it'll be presented on April 17th. The annual Lunch for Life is going to be on May 20th, and that was last year, and it turned out to be an excellent thing. People really enjoyed it, plus the restaurants had a great time. If you need some information about things going on there, just call 881-1900. It's in the book. It's under AIDS Project of the Ozarks. You can get that. Other announcements is the Mom Conference is coming up. We talked about this last week, but you need to get your money in if you're going to go on up there. That's up in Columbia, and it's April 8th through the 10th. That's Missouri on the Move, and it's sponsored by the Missouri Task Force for Lesbian and Gay Concerns Policy Institute and the University, or the Missouri University Triangle Coalition. If you want information on that, we're going to have a number you can call for that information. Also, COHAB is looking for some volunteers to help with community projects still, so make sure you give us a call about that. And also, This Gay Life is still looking for an intern. If you'd like to help out with gathering news and stuff like that, that would be great. I'd like to really thank my guest, Carol Conway of Springfield Chapter Now. And next week, we're going to be having a program on interfaith AIDS. So I know you'll want to go ahead and tune in for that. Thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to being with you next week. My name is Cruz Devon, and this is This Gay Life.